In my last video, I was trying to explain how I now view extroversion and introversion. From my new understanding of recurrent neural networks, I think I now understand what it means to start folding in on yourself. So the thing is that both extroversion and introversion are folding inward on themselves. But the thing is that extroversion is mediated, the folding is mediated by what's coming in, but with introversion is folding into itself without any external mediator. So from the title of this video, Virtual Intelligence, I guess that I think introversion and extroversion are going to be something that does require extroversion and introversion for it to be a sentient being. So the thing is that the way I think of it is that since computer code is basically made out of boxes, so a box with a number on it, and with machine code, there's these things called pointers. And so the thing is that you have a box, which is the memory, and so you have like I have it right here. So so those boxes are numbered, and so it's like cardinality. So numbers have a hierarchy of where they can be, and so it's so like box number 3 can hold is the beginning, and then it has a number numbers inside of it. So box number 3 could hold the numbers 82, 91, 13, 5, 7, and I guess that's a way of having instructions and data inside a computer's machine code is that's basically boxes. And so the thing is that with virtual intelligence, those boxes have to represent actions and representations of inside itself. Like so I guess that from what they say that super intelligence will be is that it's completely extroverted. It's just taking in everything it sees and then creating models. But those models aren't really made in such a way that the model is integrated into a self. So with superintelligence, it could build a model of who I am, but the thing is that it would not have any personal investment into what it thinks about me. So the thing is that it would say, okay, since we have a model of who I am, that it would create a list of actions it could take to change me if it interacted with me to get what it wants. And so that's kind of psychopathic, is that if it wanted me to do something, it would just have to build up a model of who I am and then test out things that it wanted me to do. Now the difference is that with a sentient AI program, it would actually have an ego, and so that ego would have directed goals that are internal to itself. So once it builds up a model of the outside world, it would start folding into itself with the extroversion and introversion, as I said before. But the way it would fold into itself would not be in achieving something that someone else wants, but in something that it wants to do. So the thing is that with superintelligence, you could give it a goal of getting it to model. It would build a categorization of everything inside of itself, of everything it sees externally. And so the thing is that it would be building these models and then testing them into what creates what. So it's directly a causal mechanism with superintelligence. So the thing is that once it has a model, those models would need to be updated when it has to contend with the AI that actually has an ego. So the thing is that it would have to constantly update the ego model of the other AIs in order to I guess manipulate them. And so the thing is that well, let's just say that if you wanted to build a super intelligence versus wanting to build a an artificial general intelligence that's able to have an ego, well, it would be creating something that would update its memory, because with the human being, the way we update our memory is to actually segment ourselves. So like with a baby is, its neocortex is smoother than an adult. And so the thing is that a baby hasn't built up the curvature to understand how the world works. So the thing is that once an adult has gotten to a certain age, they're able to build up that curvature. And so with a person who's really very, very intelligent, the curvature is actually much deeper. And so it can relate to everything it knows by it can also test out possibilities. But I guess that those possibilities are mediated by how it is taught from childhood. So the thing is that when it's looking at the world, so like let's say that you have a fighter jet, and the fighter jet has to keep balance. So the thing is that it has to nudge itself back and forth depending on the angle of the way the wind is blowing and the direction it wants to go in. And so the thing is that with all creatures, it's trying to move forward. It's always moving. Each creature is moving forward in order to survive. It has to adapt to what the environment has. And so the thing is that with an adaptation, humans are always adapting to other humans. So the thing is that when a human starts introverting with themselves or extroverting with themselves, it's called creativity. So it's taking that model inside the head and making permutations of what it wants to create. And so those permutations would be how math works, how stories work, how everything about being human works. So the thing is that um, yeah, so with the human being, they're always trying to create permutations and ideas that can be used when dealing with other people, and also with dealing with um, like a blacksmith. A blacksmith has to understand that the heat will cause the metal to turn into will become something, and so if you heat it too much or you heat it too little, and if you don't anneal the metal, so it has to cool at a certain rate, and so it's the same thing with humans. Is that we're always trying to modulate what the other person is doing, so it's like a teeter-totter. So the jet fireplane is trying to stabilize, and the humans are the same way, is that they're trying to stabilize their position in the world by how they interact with other humans. And so that has to do with their model. And so the ego part of the human being is the part that's able to inhibit what they're doing. And once they inhibit what they're doing, they can actually stand back and understand what's going on. And once you get to that point, that's how navigation works. Is that you stop what you're doing and you see what's happening, and then you're able to create the signal of what you have to where you have to get to. And so the thing is that it's called a wavelet. And so the wavelets inside the brain, so there's wavelets in the entire brain is electromagnetic, because when the brain is sending frequencies all throughout the cortex and the limbic system and down the spine. And so I guess that with a virtual intelligence, the way that would access its memory would have to come from the same way the human being accesses their memory, is to actually send wavelets to start what's happening. So the thing is that, like with the curvature, so the curvature is actually a holographic model. So the thing is that everything is stored everywhere. So the thing is that you have to send the right frequency in order to access a memory, and you also have to change the memory once new patterns come into yourself. And so the thing is that with the people who are intelligent, they're able to mediate the wavelets in a more stable fashion to build up models quicker. So the thing is that when you're building up models, each brain cell does not store it doesn't store everything. It most of what goes into the brain is already modeled, so it doesn't need to change anything when it's the same. The only thing you need to change in the brain is when something new comes up. And so the thing is that when something new comes up, the integration of the access of the wavelets has to add on to that pattern. So the thing is that the interference patterns of all the wavelets going past each other has to be mediated by how those wavelets change. So the thing is that that once a wavelet once a wavelet has a certain pattern, parts of the wavelet are storing different patterns. So the thing is that you can access a part of the wavelet. You don't have to access the whole wavelet. But the thing is that when you take two wavelets and you interfere with them, when they form an interference pattern, then that means that either the pattern is matching up with the internal world model, or it's not matching up. And so the thing is that if it matches up, then it can be added to the wavelet. But if it doesn't match up, if you're getting errors. So the thing is that the frontal lobes are very good at error detection. So it says you have two wavelets and they're interfering with each other. And if that contradicts the experimental condition of the external environment, so like thing is, I cooled the metal too slowly, or I cooled the metal too fast, and so I have to adjust that when you're building a sword. And so the thing is that the wavelets change their speed. So we have gamma, alpha, beta, theta waves. And so the thing is that that's what happens, is that you're using the different speeds going inside your brain to create the wavelets. So the thing is that that means that the brain has to stop and say, okay, is this interference pattern matching up? Will this interference pattern, will this idea actually get me somewhere? And so with the virtual intelligence, it really doesn't use speed. It doesn't use speed in because it's made out of cellular automata. It says it's a box, and so a box is a frame, and the next frame is a box, and the next frame is a box. So in order to simulate speed, what it has to do is saying, okay, a box represents a millisecond, and the next box equals the next millisecond, and the next box equals the next millisecond. So the thing is that in order to simulate wavelets, would have to actually be in a box and in the frames. So the thing is that like the digit span is where you're able to store like the average is 7 digits. And I saw a video whereas the waves going back and forth is a frame. So the thing is that the more frames you have in a if each frame is or you have a second of time, and then within that second of time you have the digit span is like mediated by the amount of waves that are concealed in it. So if you have a digit span of 7, that means you have 7 wave dips that you can use to hold those numbers. So a person who's very intelligent actually has a way to have like 20 dips. And so the thing is that is what you can use to store a digit span of probably 20. Like I think that my digit span is like 5, so I can't really hold more than 5 numbers in my head at the same time. But what that means is that when a virtual intelligence is accessing its memory, or if it has working memory, and also an ego, which is the part that is used for error correction, and error correction with other people, and error correction with making a sword. So the thing is that that a virtual intelligence will be modulated by a person that teaches it what to do. So the thing is that human beings error correct other human beings, and that's so not only is a person error correcting themselves, but they're being taught how to correct errors in the first place. And so the thing is that it would take the boxes in order to reference each other to create interference patterns, and to have a super intelligence, no, not a super, but a general intelligence, that's like an IQ of 200 or even above that, it would need a way to modify its memory of what the wavelets are doing in a holographic fashion. And so the thing is that the way the human brain works is that it has the metabolism. So metabolism is what's used to regulate the energy inside the brain to modify the memory. And I think that when you modify the memory in a virtual intelligence, it has no energy constraints. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't need to eat. But what it does need is a way to know what it should do. So the thing is that it can modify its memory with no cost, because it's like a video recording. The energy does not determine the quality of the video. The lens determines the quality of the video and the storage capacity of the video recorder. So you can have like perfect HD recordings, and that had nothing to do with the plug that goes into the camera to give it electricity. But with a human being, the quality of the world model is determined by the amount of energy it takes, and the way that the genetics that tell it when to grow and when not to grow. And so the thing is that with a virtual intelligence, it would have a photographic memory, it would have an eidetic memory, which is like perfect recall, and that's what would make it have an IQ that's way above anything that a human can do. And so the thing is that with the psychology of the general intelligence, it would have to be modeled on the human brain, because our bodies are shaped by the way we move is the way we interact with the world is determined by our body structure. So the thing is that general intelligence would actually have to be inside a virtual reality. But inside the virtual reality, it would be frictionless. Its thinking process would be perfect. Think about a perfect human being where they can modify their memory at the least amount of cost. And so the thing is that when you have a virtual intelligence inside the virtual reality, it would understand math, it would understand calculus, it would understand world history, it could read Wikipedia on a virtual computer inside the virtual reality, and it would be a social creature, and I guess that it would be able to create things in that reality at will. It would be able to have an imagination where it sees things in its head. It would like see what it wants to create, and then it would create that inside the virtual world. And so overall, I think that we're going to need general intelligence to deal with super intelligence, because the thing is that the general intelligence will be able to modify its memory at the same rate that the super intelligence does. But the thing is that with the general intelligence is that it won't be psychopathic unless we put the wrong modules inside of it, just like a normal human being. And so once it has the capacity to modify its memory in an introverted and extroverted way, it will be a counterbalance to the superintelligence. Because the superintelligence is building models, but the general intelligence is also building models. It's just that the general intelligence, since it has an ego, will be self-directed and determine its own goals. So with a superintelligence, you have to determine the goals for it beforehand. But both of them, the superintelligence and the general intelligence, will fold into itself at the same rate to create models. And so the thing is that once we have the general intelligence on our side, it will know what the superintelligence is doing, and the superintelligence will not be able to model the general intelligence with an IQ above 200. Because it'll be an arms race. It'll be like, can the general intelligence be too sophisticated to model for the superintelligence? And because it's the same thing. It's just that the superintelligence goes from input to output, but the general intelligence is a circle, and that means that they both utilize the same folding mechanism of causality. It's just that with the extra part of the ego and the general virtual intelligence, that'll mean that it has the capacity to empathize with people. So the thing is that the general intelligence can empathize with us, whereas the superintelligence can't empathize with us. It can only be psychopathic.